there is something you have been carrying for a very long time. Something that doesn't have a visible shape, doesn't leave a mark anyone else can see, and doesn't announce itself in ways that get you sympathy or understanding. It lives quietly inside the way you hesitate before asking for help. It lives in the automatic apology that forms in your mouth before you've even finished a sentence. It lives in the strange guilt you feel when you want something, when you need something, when you dare to take up space in a room full of people who seem to do it so effortlessly. You have spent years, maybe decades, trying to change, trying to be different, trying to build the life you know somewhere deep down that you deserve. And you've failed, not once, not twice, but so many times that the failure itself has become part of your identity. Another piece of evidence in the case you've been building against yourself since you were very small. And every time you fall back into the old patterns, every time the momentum dies and the silence returns, and you find yourself exactly where you started, you ask the same brutal question. What is wrong with me? Here is what I want you to understand before we go any further. Nothing is wrong with you, but something happened to you. Something quiet and invisible and devastating. Something that most people around you probably never noticed, and something you may not have had language for until right now. Somewhere in your childhood, you learned a lesson that no child should ever have to learn. You learned that your needs don't matter. Not in a dramatic, obvious way necessarily. Not always through cruelty or neglect that anyone would call abuse. Sometimes it happened softly, in the way your emotions were dismissed, in the way you were told to stop crying, to toughen up, to be grateful, to not make a fuss, in the way your pain was minimized, your joy was ignored, your hunger, whether emotional or physical or spiritual, was treated as an inconvenience. And you, being the remarkable, adaptive, deeply intelligent child that you were, learned the lesson well. You learned to make yourself smaller. You learned to need less. You learned to give more than you took, to ask for nothing, to perform okayness even when you were anything but okay. And that lesson, absorbed into your nervous system before you even had the words to question it, is still running your life today. This is what we are going to talk about. Not just what happened to you, but what it did to you, and what it continues to do, invisibly, in every room you walk into, in every relationship you navigate, in every attempt you make to build something better for yourself. Because you cannot change the map if you don't know the map exists. And for so many people who grew up learning that their needs were unimportant, the map they are using is one they never chose, never saw clearly, and never knew they could put down. Let's start at the beginning with what psychologists call emotional neglect. Not the kind of neglect that leaves visible marks, not the absence of food or shelter or physical safety, but the absence of something equally essential, the absence of emotional attunement, of being seen, of having your inner world treated as real and important and worth responding to. Emotional neglect happens when a child's emotional needs are consistently unmet. When a parent is physically present but emotionally absent. When feelings are dismissed or minimized or simply never acknowledged. When the child learns through repetition and silence and subtle correction that emotions are burdens, that needs are weaknesses, that the safest thing to do is to stop having them, or at least to stop showing them. And here is what makes this particular wound so difficult to recognize and so difficult to heal. It is defined by absence rather than presence. It is not something that was done to you. It is something that was never given to you. And the absence of something, especially something as invisible as emotional attunement, is extraordinarily hard to name. You can't point to it. You can't describe it in a way that feels credible. You can't say, this specific thing happened on this specific day and broke something in me. It was 1,000 small moments of not being seen. 1,000 small moments of learning that what you felt didn't register. And the cumulative weight of those moments shaped you in ways that are still unfolding. Research in developmental psychology tells us that children need emotional mirroring to develop a healthy sense of self. They need a caregiver to reflect back their emotional experience, to say in words or in presence, I see what you are feeling and it is real and it matters. And you are not alone in it. When that mirroring is absent or inconsistent, children don't conclude that their caregivers failed them. They don't have the cognitive architecture for that conclusion yet. Instead, they conclude something far more personal. They conclude that they are the problem, that their feelings are too much, that their needs are unreasonable, that who they are at the core is somehow wrong. And that conclusion, made before the age of reason, before the capacity for critical thought, becomes the foundation on which everything else is built. Your identity, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, your capacity to pursue what you want and to receive what you need. Think about what that means for a moment. Think about the child you were, the child who learned to read the room before entering it, who learned to gauge the emotional temperature of a space before deciding whether it was safe to exist fully in it, who learned to shrink, to accommodate, to become whatever was needed, because being yourself, needing things, asking for things, had proven to be costly in ways you couldn't afford. That child became extraordinarily skilled at survival. And survival is not nothing. Survival is remarkable. The adaptations you made, the sensitivity you developed, the ability to anticipate others' needs, to navigate emotional complexity, to function in environments that were not built to support you. These are not weaknesses. They are evidence of profound resilience. But survival strategies are not the same as living strategies. And what kept you safe as a child is what is holding you back as an adult. If this is resonating with you, please take a second to like the video and subscribe so more of this content finds its way to you. Here is where it gets complicated, because the beliefs you formed in childhood about your own needs don't feel like beliefs. They feel like facts. They feel like the truth about who you are and what you deserve. When you feel guilty for asking for help, it doesn't feel like a learned response to early conditioning. It feels like the appropriate response to an unreasonable request. When you abandon your own needs to meet someone else's, it doesn't feel like a survival pattern playing out automatically. It feels like the right thing to do, the kind thing, the responsible thing. When you minimize your pain, dismiss your own feelings, talk yourself out of wanting what you want, it doesn't feel like self-betrayal. It feels like maturity, like perspective, like not being dramatic. This is the insidious nature of early conditioning. It doesn't announce itself as a wound. It announces itself as wisdom. And so you live inside it, completely unaware that the voice telling you your needs don't matter is not the voice of truth. It is the voice of a child who learned to survive in an environment that could not hold them. Psychologists call this internalized oppression of the self. The way external messages about your worth and your needs become internal beliefs that you then enforce on yourself more rigorously than anyone else ever could. You no longer need someone to tell you that your feelings are too much. You tell yourself. You no longer need someone to dismiss your needs. You dismiss them before they even fully form. You have become the keeper of the very rules that once kept you small. And you do it automatically, invisibly, without even noticing that it is happening. And here is what that does to your attempts at change. Every time you try to build something different, every time you try to take up more space, to advocate for yourself, to choose your own needs over the reflexive accommodation of others, you run directly into this internal architecture, this operating system that was built for a different environment and a different time. And it resists. Not because you are weak, not because you lack discipline or willpower or desire, but because the part of you that learned to survive is still doing its job, still protecting you from the perceived danger of being seen, of being heard, of needing things and having those needs matter. This is why change feels so threatening even when you desperately want it. This is why you can know intellectually that you deserve better and still find yourself unable to act as though you do. This is why the gap between what you know and what you feel is so vast and so exhausting to stand in. Let's talk about what this actually looks like in daily life, because the ways this wound expresses itself are so normalized, so woven into the fabric of ordinary existence, that most people who carry it have never recognized it as a wound at all. It looks like apologizing constantly for your opinions, for your presence, for taking up space in a conversation, for having needs, for existing in ways that might inconvenience someone else. It looks like the word sorry coming out of your mouth before you've even assessed whether an apology is warranted, because somewhere in your nervous system, your existence itself feels like something that requires constant justification. It looks like the inability to receive compliments, to receive help, to receive love without immediately deflecting, minimizing, or trying to give something back to balance the perceived debt. Because somewhere in your body lives the belief that you are not someone who gets to receive. that receiving makes you a burden, that taking without immediately giving is dangerous. It looks like overgiving. The compulsive generosity that is not really generosity at all, but rather a deep, unconscious strategy to earn your place, to justify your presence, to make yourself useful enough that people will keep you around, because somewhere in your history, being useful was the only reliable way to secure connection. It looks like the inability to identify what you actually want, not just the inability to ask for it, but the genuine confusion that arises when someone asks you what you need, what you prefer, what would make you happy. Because when you spend enough time treating your own needs as irrelevant, you eventually lose touch with them. You stop being able to hear them. They become a language you used to speak fluently that has slowly faded from disuse. It looks like the chronic exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much you've slept. The bone-deep tiredness of spending every day monitoring everyone else's emotional state while systematically ignoring your own, of being exquisitely attuned to the needs and feelings of the people around you, while being almost entirely disconnected from what is happening inside yourself. And it looks like the failure to change, the cycle that brought you here, the pattern of trying and falling back, of building momentum and losing it, of knowing what you want and being unable to sustain the pursuit of it, because every attempt at genuine change, every step toward a life that actually honors your needs and your worth, triggers the deepest alarm in your nervous system. The alarm that says, this is not safe. This is not who you are. Get back to where you belong. I want to pause here and ask you something. When did you first notice this pattern in yourself? Was there a specific moment, a conversation, a relationship, where you suddenly saw it clearly for the first time? Drop it in the comments. Your moment of recognition might be exactly what someone else needs to finally name what they've been carrying. There is a concept in psychology called the window of tolerance. It describes the zone of arousal in which a person can function most effectively, can think clearly, feel without being overwhelmed, engage with the world from a place of relative stability. When something pushes us outside that window, either into hyper-arousal, the state of anxiety and panic and fight or flight, or into hypo-arousal, the state of shutdown and numbness and disconnection, our capacity for intentional, values-driven action collapses. For people who grew up learning that their needs don't matter, the window of tolerance is often very narrow, because the nervous system was shaped in an environment of emotional unpredictability, where the emotional temperature could shift without warning, where expressing needs could result in dismissal or anger or withdrawal of connection. The nervous system learned to stay vigilant, to scan constantly for threat, to interpret ambiguity as danger. And that hypervigilance, that constant low-grade alarm, means that the window within which you can act from your authentic self rather than from fear is much smaller than it should be. This is why you can make a decision in the morning, a clear, grounded decision to do something differently, to ask for what you need, to hold a boundary, to prioritize yourself, and by the afternoon, find yourself having abandoned it without fully understanding why. It is not weakness. It is not inconsistency of character. It is your nervous system doing what it learned to do, narrowing the window, pulling you back to familiar ground, keeping you safe by keeping you the same. And here is the truth that most approaches to change miss entirely. You cannot think your way out of this. You cannot willpower your way past it. You cannot simply decide to be different and have your nervous system cooperate. Because this is not a cognitive problem. It is not a problem of information or intention. It is a problem written into the body, into the automatic responses that operate below the level of conscious thought. And it requires a different kind of approach, one that works with the nervous system rather than against it, one that understands that healing is not about becoming someone new overnight, but about slowly, patiently, compassionately expanding the window within which you can be yourself. Let's talk about the second invisible force at work here, the one that masquerades as practicality and responsibility, but is actually something much older and much more personal. Avoidance. Not the obvious avoidance of procrastination, though that is part of it, but the deeper avoidance. The avoidance of your own inner world. The avoidance of the feelings and the needs and the truths that live inside you and have been waiting, sometimes for decades, to be acknowledged. When you grow up learning that your emotional experience is not important, you learn to cope by not feeling, by staying in your head rather than your body, by keeping busy, by being productive, by filling every quiet moment with noise or task or the needs of other people, because silence is dangerous, because silence is where the feelings live, and the feelings you learned early are not safe to have. This is what psychologists sometimes call emotional avoidance, and it is one of the most common and most costly consequences of growing up emotionally neglected. It is the habitual turning away from your own inner experience, the reflexive numbing, the unconscious strategy of staying on the surface of your own life to avoid the turbulence underneath. And it is extraordinarily effective in the short term. If you never sit with the loneliness, you never have to feel it. If you never acknowledge the anger, you never have to deal with what it means. If you never let yourself fully want something, you never have to grieve not having it. The avoidance is protective. It was protective. It kept you functioning in an environment that could not hold your full emotional reality. But here is what avoidance costs you in the long run. It costs you your ability to know yourself, because you cannot know yourself if you are constantly running from yourself. It costs you your ability to make choices that are genuinely aligned with what you need and want, because you have lost touch with what that is. It costs you your capacity for genuine intimacy, because intimacy requires presence, requires the willingness to be known, and you have spent so long making yourself unknowable, even to yourself, that the prospect of being truly seen by another person is terrifying. And it costs you your ability to change, because real change, the kind that lasts, the kind that transforms, rather than just rearranges, requires you to go inward, requires you to sit with discomfort, requires you to face the parts of yourself you have been carefully avoiding. And every time change asks this of you, avoidance steps in with a more comfortable offer. Not yet. Later. When you're ready. When things calm down. When you've finished everything else. When the time is right. The time is never right when avoidance is running the show. And here is the cruel irony. The very thing you are avoiding, the feelings, the needs, the truths, is the thing that holds the key to your freedom. The grief you haven't let yourself feel, the anger you have swallowed for years, the longing for something different that you have dismissed as unrealistic or selfish or too much. These are not your enemies. They are your guides. They are the parts of you that know what you need. And they have been waiting, patiently and not so patiently, for you to finally turn toward them. Now let's talk about the third force, the one that catches people most off guard, the discomfort of becoming. The strange, disorienting, almost frightening feeling that arises not when things are going badly, but when they are going well. You know this feeling even if you've never had a name for it. You set a boundary and it holds. And instead of feeling proud, you feel guilty. You ask for something you need and someone actually gives it to you. And instead of feeling grateful, you feel unworthy. You start to build something that looks like the life you've always wanted. And instead of feeling excited, you feel like a fraud. Like you are wearing someone else's clothes. Like at any moment, the whole thing will collapse and everyone will see that you were never supposed to have this. This is not imposter syndrome in the casual, colloquial sense. This is something deeper. This is what happens when your sense of identity was built around not having needs, around being small, around being the person who gives and accommodates and never asks for anything. When you start to change that, when you start to take up the space you actually deserve, it contradicts everything your nervous system believes to be true about who you are. And the nervous system, which craves consistency above almost everything else, responds with alarm. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as identity threat, the sense that change, even positive change, feels dangerous because it challenges the coherent, if painful, a story you have been telling yourself about who you are. And for people who grew up learning that their needs don't matter, that story is deeply entrenched. It is not just a belief, it is the foundation of the self. It is the thing that has organized every relationship, every decision, every automatic response for years or decades. So when you begin to rewrite it, when you begin to act as though your needs do matter, as though you are someone who deserves to take up space and ask for things and receive care, every part of your old identity protests. You feel like you are betraying someone. You feel like you are being selfish, demanding too much. You feel the pull back to the familiar smallness with an almost gravitational force. And this is the moment when most people give up. Not because they don't want to change, not because they don't believe in the possibility of something different. But because the discomfort of becoming feels indistinguishable from the warning signal of danger, and they have spent their whole lives treating that signal as something to obey. Here is what you need to understand about that signal. It is not telling you that you are doing something wrong. It is telling you that you are doing something new. There is a difference, and learning to tell the difference, learning to sit with the discomfort of growth without interpreting it as evidence of wrongness, is perhaps the most essential skill in the entire process of healing. This is not easy. It requires practice. It requires patience. It requires a quality of self-compassion that may feel completely foreign if you grew up being your own harshest critic. And for most people who learned early that their needs don't matter, self-compassion is not a natural default. It is a radical act. It is something that has to be chosen, deliberately and repeatedly, against the current of everything you were taught. Research by psychologist Kristin Neff tells us that self-compassion, the ability to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend, is one of the strongest predictors of psychological well-being and resilience. Not self-esteem, which can be fragile and conditional. Not self-confidence, which can collapse under pressure. But self-compassion, the stable, unconditional quality of being on your own side, of treating your own suffering as worthy of care. And here is why this matters so much for the specific wound we are talking about. When you grew up learning that your needs don't matter, you did not learn self-compassion. You learned its opposite. You learned to manage your needs by minimizing them, dismissing them, or turning them against yourself. You learned that the appropriate response to your own pain was to push through it, to get over it, to stop making such a big deal out of everything. And that internal voice, the one that sounds so much like wisdom and perspective and maturity, is actually the voice of the wound itself. It is the internalized message of every time your emotional experience was treated as unimportant. And it will continue to run your life until you learn to recognize it for what it is and choose something different. Choosing something different does not mean becoming self-indulgent or fragile or endlessly focused on your own needs at the expense of others. That is the fear, isn't it? That if you start taking your own needs seriously, you will become someone unrecognizable, someone selfish, someone who uses their pain as an excuse. That fear is itself part of the wound. It is the wound protecting itself. Because the wound, the belief that your needs don't matter, has a very strong investment in your continued compliance. The truth is that taking your needs seriously, treating your emotional experience as real and important and worthy of care, does not make you less generous or less loving or less capable of showing up for others. In fact, research consistently shows the opposite. People who are connected to their own needs, who have a healthy relationship with their own emotional experience, who practice genuine self-compassion, are more capable of authentic empathy, not less, because they are not giving from a place of depletion or fear or the compulsive need to earn their place. They are giving from a place of genuine fullness, from choice rather than compulsion. from love rather than survival. This is the difference between the giving that exhausts you and the giving that sustains you, between the care that depletes you and the care that comes naturally when you are not running on empty, between the accommodating that shrinks you and the generosity that expands you. And that difference begins with learning, slowly and imperfectly, and with tremendous compassion for how hard it is to treat your own needs as mattering. What finally gave you permission to start taking your own needs seriously? Was it something someone said, something you read, a moment of exhaustion that became a turning point? I'd genuinely love to know. Share it in the comments, because that kind of honesty has a way of reaching people who are still waiting for their own permission. Let's talk about what this healing actually looks like. Because I want to be honest with you, it does not look like a sudden, dramatic transformation. It does not look like waking up one day and finding that the old patterns are gone and the new ones are fully in place. It does not look like a straight line from where you are to where you want to be. It looks like noticing, like becoming aware, sometimes for the first time, of the automatic responses that have been running in the background of your life. The apology that forms before it's needed. The flinch when someone asks what you want. The guilt that arises when you choose yourself. The first step is simply to see these patterns, not to judge them, not to fix them, just to see them. To say, there it is, the old lesson, the old belief. I see you, because you cannot change what you cannot see. And so many people who carry this wound have spent their entire lives inside it, unable to see it because it is the water they swim in. It is the air they breathe. It is not a belief they hold. It is the lens through which they see everything. And the moment you begin to notice it, to catch it in action, to name it for what it is, something shifts. Not everything, not immediately, but something. It looks like learning to pause before the automatic response, to create just a tiny gap between the stimulus and the reaction, between someone asking what you need and the immediate dismissal of your own answer, between the impulse to apologize and the apology itself, between the feeling and the habitual response to it. That gap, that tiny space of awareness, is where your freedom lives. It is small at first, but it grows with practice. It looks like asking yourself, with genuine curiosity rather than judgment, what do I actually need right now? Not what should I need. Not what would be reasonable to need. Not what would be convenient for everyone else if I needed. But what do I actually need? And then listening. Really listening. Even if the answer is uncomfortable. Even if the answer is something you have been dismissing for years. Even if the answer is something you don't know how to give yourself yet. Asking the question is itself an act of healing. It looks like practicing the radical act of letting your needs matter in small ways. Not all at once, not in the biggest, most terrifying context first, but in the small daily moments where the stakes are lower and the practice is possible. Choosing what you actually want for dinner instead of defaulting to what everyone else wants. Saying, I don't know when you genuinely don't know. instead of performing certainty to avoid being a burden. Letting someone help you with something without immediately trying to repay the perceived debt. These small moments are not small. They are the building blocks of a different relationship with yourself. They are the practice that slowly, over time, rewrites the operating system. And it looks like grieving. Because there is grief in this work. Grief for the child who deserved more than they received. Grief for the years spent making yourself small in ways that cost you things you can never fully recover. Grief for the relationships that were shaped by the wound. For the choices made from fear rather than freedom. For the version of yourself that might have existed if things had been different. That grief is real. It deserves to be felt, not indulged endlessly, but felt, acknowledged, given the space it needs to move through you. Because grief, when it is allowed to complete itself, does not leave you diminished. It leaves you lighter. It leaves you more present to what is actually here, to what is actually possible, to who you actually are when you are not carrying the weight of everything you were never allowed to feel. You are not broken. I want to say that again, because it is the thing most likely to be forgotten in the middle of a hard day, in the middle of a setback, in the middle of the familiar spiral of self-recrimination that follows another failed attempt at change. You are not broken. You are responding in ways that made complete sense given what you experienced to an environment that could not hold your full humanity. You are carrying a wound that was never your fault and never your failure. And you are here, which means some part of you has never stopped believing that something different is possible. That belief is not naive. It is not wishful thinking. It is the most grounded, most accurate thing about you. Because something different is possible. Not easy, not immediate, not without difficulty and setback. And the occasional night of staring at the ceiling and wondering why any of this is so hard. But possible. Genuinely. Actually. Profoundly possible. The path forward is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming more fully who you have always been underneath the survival strategies, underneath the smallness you learned to perform, underneath the needs you learned to deny. There is a self in there that knows what it wants, that knows what it feels, that knows what it deserves. And that self has been waiting with extraordinary patience for you to finally come home to it. This is the work, not the work of discipline or willpower or pushing through, the work of compassion, of curiosity, of slowly, gently, persistently choosing to treat yourself as someone whose needs matter, not because you have earned it, not because you have fixed everything that is broken, not because you have finally become good enough or healed enough or together enough, but because you are a human being. And human beings have needs, and those needs matter, yours included. You are allowed to want things. You are allowed to need things. You are allowed to take up space, to ask for help, to say no, to say yes, to feel what you feel without immediately talking yourself out of it. You are allowed to exist in your full size, not the diminished version you learned to perform for an audience that needed you to to be smaller. Your full size, the size of everything you actually are. That is not too much. That has never been too much. The people who taught you otherwise were working from their own limitations, their own wounds, their own unexamined beliefs about what people deserve and how much space is appropriate, and whose needs are worth attending to. Their limitations were not your truth. They never were, and you are allowed, right now, today, to begin treating yourself as though that is true. Not perfectly, not all at once, not without stumbling and falling back and having to begin again, but to begin, to take the first small, imperfect, courageous step toward a life that is organized around your actual worth, rather than the diminished version of it you were handed in childhood. If this video found you at a moment when you needed to hear that your needs are real, that your experience is valid, that the struggle you carry is not a character flaw, but a wound that deserves healing, I hope it helped. I hope it gave you just a little more language for something you have been carrying without words. And I hope it reminded you, even for a moment, that you are not alone in this. That there are others who know this particular kind of invisible weight, who understand what it is to have learned too young, that who you are and what you need is somehow too much. If someone in your life is carrying this same invisible weight, quietly believing their needs don't matter and never quite understanding why change feels so out of reach, consider sharing this with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for someone is hand them the language for something they've been living without words for. That kind of recognition, the feeling of finally being seen, can be the thing that starts everything. If you feel safe, share something in the comments. Not because you owe anyone your story, but because somewhere out there, someone is watching this and still not quite believing that it applies to them. And your voice, your willingness to say, yes, this is real, this is mine, I know this, might be exactly what they need to finally feel seen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And if this touched something in you, the video on the psychology of the child who raised themselves goes even deeper into what happens when a child has to become their own caregiver, what it costs them, and what it means for who they become. That one is worth your time.